Good morning, everybody. My name is Cesar Torrente. I'm an FEI 4-star dressage judge, a 3-star FEI para dressage judge, and a USEF judge. To start with, I'd like to thank the United States Para Equestrian Association for inviting me to do this presentation. And today we're going to be talking about para dressage. And this will include different topics about horse welfare, because it's very important that all of you understand that all FEI regulations regarding horse welfare apply for para sports. We're going to be talking also about how do we judge dressage. And I want to explain that judging para dressage is not too different from judging regular dressage. And I will explain what are the judges looking for in every single movement in a para dressage test. Then we'll talk about what are the expectations of the judges in a dressage and a para dressage test. I will also comment as to how you can use the judges' comments to improve scores on future rides. Judges take a lot of time writing comments mark by mark, and we usually think a lot at the end of the test to write one sentence or two sentences, sometimes more, that try to say how we do believe that the performance can be improved. So it's very important to read that, and we'll talk about that later. And then I'll also give you at the end some of my tips to make a good impression on the judges. So we're going to start with this very important question that was asked to me when I was invited to do this presentation. Is judging para dressage different from judging regular dressage? And before I start with all of these, just a legal mention. We will be using FEI rules and regulations and FEI diagrams. They have copyrights. Of course, we can use them because this is a video only for educational purposes, and copyright laws internationally and nationally allowed us to do it. Some of my thoughts, besides the rules and regulations, are my personal thoughts and do not compromise the FEI nor the USEF or any other relevant bodies. So even though I'm a member and as an FEI judge, I represent the FEI, my interpretations cannot compromise those of the FEI. So let's start with a very important topic, and this is the welfare of the horse. So the FEI para rules start with this chapter, the importance of the welfare of the horse. And I did not want to start this conversation without bringing to your attention how important the FEI Code of Conduct for the welfare of the horse is. And you know, when you're training, when you're showing on a daily basis, we should all be thinking about this FEI conduct for the welfare of the horse. And to start with, I think it's simple. We don't have to make it complicated. The welfare of the horse must be paramount. And if you think about this on your normal training, and if you think about this during competition, believe me, you will save yourself a lot of troubles. And believe me, you will have more success. So it is very important that welfare of the horse must never be subordinated to competitive or commercial influences, and that all these points must be taken into consideration. Good horse management, training methods. All training methods must not impair horse welfare. Many times I'm asked, like, what do you think about this race? What do you think about these beats? And my question usually is like, I don't know much about all these different gadgets and bits, because to me the easiest to use properly is a normal snaffle, normal double bridle. So, all the different gadgets that sometimes you hear, of course, be careful with that. You cannot use any methods nor any gadgets that may cause fear or that are abusive to your horse. And of course, pay attention, you cannot do that in showgrounds, will be eliminated. Ferry and tack is also very important. Transportation of the horses. And then the horses must also be fit to compete. They have to be healthy, and we do not allow doping and medication for horses. Any action or intent of doping or any illicit use of medication is a very serious welfare issue, and the FEI will not tolerate it, nor the national bodies in any other country that you're participating. And I'm saying this because maybe this video may reach some other countries as well. So please take into consideration that any abuse of the horse is not to be tolerated, and using natural riding aids or artificial aids, especially artificial aids, will not be tolerated. Then, going back, I always go back to the principles. We can make dressage and para-dressage as complicated as possible, but we can also make it as simple as possible. And I've been judging for many, many years. I competed all my life since I was 12 years old. And at the end, you find all the answers here. Rhythm is at the base of the pyramid. Whether you're judging or you're looking at a Grand Prix horse at the Olympics, or a training level horse, or a Para 1, or Para 4, or you're watching an extended trot or a normal working trot, rhythm is the basic. If the rhythm is not okay, then the marks of the judges will not be great. So that's very important. That's the base of everything. Then we look at the suppleness of the horse. So here we're talking about elasticity and freedom from anxiety. So we want to see horses that are relaxed. We don't want to see horses that are tense. We don't want to see horses that are switching their tails. We don't want to see horses that look like really stressed out. So this is physical, and this is also mental for the horses. Then we will look at the contact. What we want to see, a nice steady connection with the horse's mouth. And we don't want to see horses opening the mouth. We don't want to see tongues out. We want to see horses that are accepting the bit. And that's the only way that you can perform all the movements. Then, impulsion. We want to see horses that are moving forward from back to front. And of course, the degree of engagement will vary depending on the level. So we will not ask the same degree of engagement in a Para 1 as to the higher, more difficult levels. Like the same in dressage, we don't ask the same degree of engagement of a training level horse or St. George horse to a Grand Prix. It is different. But the horses must go forward, must have this desire to go forward, and depending on the level, must show engagement. At the end, we want to improve the balance of the horse. Then, very important, the horses have to be straight. Naturally, the horses are not straight, and usually, and everybody that has ridden a horse knows that they're usually easier to one side than to the other. They have a hollow side. So one of the aims of training a horse is making it supple to both sides. And by achieving that, the horse will become straighter, and that will also allow you to bend in the circles. We will talk about the circles, the figure eights, the serpentines, and that's where you can show how you can bend to one side, then go straight, then to the other side. So this lateral suppleness is also something that we will be looking at. We will also look at this. It's as important in a 20-meter circle as it is in a shoulder in, or in hunches in, or in a half pass. Finally, ultimate collection for the pyro deep levels. Okay, so what we do when we sit and judge every class and every movement is that we follow that training scale that we talk about. In para dressage, of course, we will only look for the performance of the horse in the test. Obviously, we will have to take into consideration the impairments of the rider, but to us, then, the quality achieved is the most important consideration. And here, I want to mention that every time you see a test, you will find the movement and then the directives. Please read the directives. Many times, the other day I was teaching a conference and I talked about the directives, and there are some riders that had competed internationally for many years. And when I said the directives are there, the girl looked at me and said, "What are you talking about, the directives?" Yes, it says there, the regularity, the bend, where is that? So she hadn't even looked at that. And that gives you what we're looking for. So it's very important, because those directives also will be like a short, precise, I would call it a bullet of the training scale. That's what we're looking for. So, I want to start with this topic because it's different from able-bodied dressage. So let's talk about the position and age of the athlete. So everybody knows, and there is a lot written about the position of the rider in a horse in able-bodied dressage. So here, of course, we have some differences. The athlete has to be as balanced and steady in the saddle as possible. Obviously, taking into consideration the impairments, but conforming to the FEI definition of the athlete's position. This position makes it possible for the athlete to show progressive riding under training and to show all the movements and transitions with as little effort of the athlete as possible. So many times, like when people say like, how do I get to the 80s? How is it possible that the Europeans or at the Olympics there in the 90s? When is it that you give those marks? And my answer usually is like, when it looks like the riders are doing nothing, that is exactly where you get 8s and 9s and 10s. So the 8s are of great importance and the position is of great importance. Where possible, of course, only when possible, athletes have to ride with both hands in all para-dressage events. And this is new in the FEI rules, not only when executing any of the official para-dressage tests published by the FEI, but also when executing any national test that might be inserted inserted in the program of the same event. So this will apply in every single country in the world. However, when the rider finishes the test at X and is leaving the arena on a long rein, the rider may at his own discretion or her discretion ride only with one hand. And it is very important to talk about this following rule. What happens when you pat the horse in the neck? And I came to this conclusion that every time I look at a rule, there has a history. And the history of this rule is that some riders start using the patting the neck, not really to pat the horse in the neck, but to pat the horse in the back to create more impulsion. And there was nothing written on the rules. So a discrete pat, when you say, you feel the horse did good on the changes after one stretching in a long rein or after leg yielding was good, and you have the feel that you want to pat your horse in the neck, that's okay. Telling him that he did good, or if you need to swap your sweat in the head, that is allowed. Adjust your jacket, something like that, but nothing taking the reins in one hand to create more impulsion, or to moving the hand, requesting the rider, when the rider is requesting, like, we need applause from the public, then that is not allowed. Obviously, in the case of foot reins, if foot reins are used, neither the hands nor the arms may be used. Then let's talk about use of force. And here we have to make a difference between athletes in grades 1, 2, and 3 and athletes in grades 4 and 5. So for grades 1, 2, and 3, you can use their voice as an A, provided they do so in moderation. So many people would ask me, like, what is moderation? It's up to the judge, but you will talk with your trainer and you'll see that it's in moderation. We don't want anybody screaming around, but a little conversation, little use of the voice, if necessary, is allowed. Then, grades 4 and 5 may not use their voice at any time during the execution of the test, and once the test has started, the athlete shall not speak to any other person unless spoken by the judge. When does this happen? Usually, let's say you make an error, of course. So the judge will call you, so you're allowed to go to the judge and ask, where do I restart? And here is a recommendation. When this happens, unless you're absolutely sure what you're going to do, take the time, go to the judge and ask, where do I start again? Because many times we end up with a second error just because the rider is not starting where the judge wants him to start again. So don't take your chances. Go to the judge. We are there to help. We will explain where to start again, and the judge actually has to read you the following movements. I usually personally give like 1, 2 movements and ask, are you clear? Where do you have to start? So that's very important. We're not there to kill anybody. We're there to help. Because one error costs a lot of points. Okay. So, and this is taken from the para-dressage rules. What do we want to see? We want to see horses that are developed into happy athletes and we want to see harmonious education. And when I was preparing this presentation, I was like, I would like to have an image. Because of copyright, having images, complicated having images of horses that are competing right now is also not very good, because it's like, oh, that judge prefers that horse because he used this in this presentation. Whatever. This is from the FEI rubric. I think it's very simple. It's a very simple diagram, but shows exactly what we want to see. The horse here, from the ears to the tail, everything looks like harmonious, like relaxed, like easy. You don't see an elevated neck. You don't see the legs up there. You don't see the hind legs back there either. The rider looks comfortable. The back looks swimming. So this is what we want to see. A horse that is calm, a horse that is supple, that is loose, that is flexible, and that gives you the idea of perfect understanding between the rider and the horse. And this is what is, in my opinion, what is beautiful about this sport. You know, when you see that there is a real good understanding, horses are beautiful. But besides that, when you see there is this harmony shown in front of you, it's absolutely fantastic. Okay. And I want to add something here. Last CPDI that I judged in Wellington, I have to tell you that the quality of the horses that we're seeing in the dressage ring, in this para dressage ring, is amazing. We started the veterinary inspection, the horse inspection, with the para horses, and then we continue with the FEI dressage horse. The quality of the horses, the beauty of the horses that we're seeing right now, it's amazing. The sport has evolved a lot, and dressage has evolved a lot. And I remember the times when you would win the American Games with 64%. I remember the times when you would win the Olympics or the European Championships with 70%. Nowadays, with 70%, you're probably 30, 33 in World Equestrian Games and Europeans. So everything has improved a lot. And para has also improved a lot. So the quality of the horses has improved. The quality of the saddles has improved. The quality of equipment has improved. The quality of training has improved. The quality of fooding has improved. The quality of vets has improved. So, and every year, everything improves. I hope the quality of judging has improved as well. I think so. Particularly, everybody's doing their best. And everybody's doing their best to achieve what we are looking for. And in para dressage, then we have these 5 grades. Many of you that are listening to this are perfectly familiar with them, but I want to go slowly through it. So grade 1 tests, movements are performed only in walk. And to make this conference a little more interesting, I have to include a story. I started as a able-bodied dressage judge. And I'm going to be very honest here. When I was invited, because somebody said from my federation, why don't you judge para dressage? We don't have, at that time we didn't have many, very few para dressage judges in Latin America. I thought to myself, I don't know if I can stay alert by judging a full test just in walk. Honestly, I'm saying this. Okay. Then I started doing my practices. And I have to tell you something. It keeps you more alert than a Grand Prix. Because you cannot miss one strike. Or 2 meters. If the corner is not good, if the circle is not 8 meters, or it's 10 meters, or it's 12 meters, and if the diagonal didn't start it was supposed to start, or the quarter line was. So, even though all the movements are performed in walk, it is extremely difficult to perform, and it is extremely difficult to judge. And it makes it very interesting. Of course, like in everything, you have to educate yourself to understand the difficulties, the intricacies of a grade 1 test. But once you're into it, it's really fascinating. Then we have grade 2 tests, and here we include trot. So we will have medium walk, but also movements performed in trot. Grade 3, the difficulties in the movements increase, but it's also walk and trot. Grade 4, and we have walk, trot with lateral work, which we will talk about later, and then canter. And then grade 5, we have walk, trot, lateral work, and canter with lateral work. So we will talk about all that in a few minutes. So because walk is present in all the grades, I think it's very important that we talk about it. And walk is a marching pace in a well-marked 4-time beat. And I think one of the movements where judges have more differences is in the walk. And where new people have more differences, or more, no, I wouldn't say difficulties in understanding, is in the walk. And the question always is, like, I did my circles, and the circles were correct. Why? That one got a 4, the other one got a 6, the other one got a 7, and the other one got an 8, and the other one got 9. Usually, the difference may lie here, the regularity of the walk and the relaxation maintained through the movements. So the first thing is to observe the regularity of the walk, that you see the 4-beat rhythm. And probably it's easier first to see a walk that is lateral, to understand then when the walk is good, or the other way around, a clear good walk then compared to an ambling or a walk that doesn't show a clear beat. So when the foreleg and the hind leg on the same side move almost in the same, like with this movement, then that's when we say that the walk tends to become almost a lateral movement. We, the judges, would write down lateral tendency. And if it is extreme, we would say ambling. And that is, of course, a very serious deterioration of the pace, and the scores will go down. We have to take care of the purity of the gaits. That's very important in dressage. So, and this is also a recommendation when you're looking for a horse. You need to find a horse that has a clear walk. I once, many years ago, I saw a horse. The horse was beautiful, had a really nice trot, had a really nice canter, had a wonderful mind and disposition. The walk was really bad. And I said to myself, I'll fix it. Could never fix it. The horse made it to the higher levels of dressage, but every time I would go to the walk, I would get 4 for the collected walk, 4 for the periods, 4 for the extended walk. So that was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 marks of 4. So arithmetics in dressage are tough. And so then to get a score over 63% was very complicated, no matter what I did in the trot and canter. So this is very important. So when we see the other thing is that then we want to see this V very clear, that is shown here in position number 3. So we want to see the clear V, and if we don't see the clear V, then the score will also go down. What walks we see? Collected walk, medium walk, extended, and stretching on a longer range. So let's talk about a medium walk, because this is the most important walk in para dressage. And I want to go to the definition because it's very important. Clear, so it's the same thing about the rhythm that we've been talking about. Regular walk of moderate lengthening. So to start with, we don't want to see collected walk. We want to see moderate lengthening. The horse remains on the beat. We don't want to see free walk, loose reins. But we want to see a horse that marches energetically. And it says the hind feet touching the ground in front of the hoof prints of the forefoot. So when you're watching medium walk, you want to see connection, you want to see the horse on the beat, but you don't want to see collected walk. The collected walk, the hind feet will not touch the ground in front of the hoof prints. But here for the medium walk, we want to see hind feet touching the ground in front of the hoof prints. Obviously, the elasticity of the steps, the freedom of the shoulder, the suppleness throughout the body, it's very important, and the contact with the mouth, and it says allowing the natural movement of the horse's head and neck. So this is what we're looking for. So what are the problems that we usually see? So one, horses too collected. 2, horses too long. That's not good either. Then you can have a horse that has a really nice walk, but then it's fighting with the connection. So it's the overall combination of all these elements that make a medium walk instead of a 6 or a 6.5, an 8 or an 8.5 or 9. Then I also want to talk about letting the horse stretch on a longer rein. So here, the regularity must be maintained, the rhythm must be maintained, the activity must be maintained, relaxation must stay there. The horse has to stretch forward and downward with the neck, lengthening the steps and frame without giving up contact. And I have to say that many times what we see is that riders throw away completely the connection, and that the horses are not really active and not really marching. So this is very important. And we also see the transitions. between the medium walk, what we were talking before, and this letting the horse stretch downwards and out to a longer walk. So the FEI, and I have to say, the judges, people don't realize how much we work to try to do a good job. And I know that sometimes we make mistakes, and everybody makes mistakes. Riders make mistakes, and trainers make mistakes. But nobody talks about the mistakes of the riders of the tracks. If we, as judges, make mistakes, everybody talks about them. And I understand it, and that's correct. But because of that, and because we've been trying, and the FEI tries, and the community in general tries to avoid differences in marking, the FEI keeps on working regularly on finding a ways to include firewalls and guidelines for judges to approach the problems. So, as I was mentioning before, there are problems with rhythm. So, if you have a diagonal where the horse has to go walking, and you see that the horse is trotting or is passaging, it's just completely tense, you cannot see a step of walk. Depending on the severity, then the marks will be a 1, a 2, or a 3. Cannot go higher. If the walk is pacing, very uneven, we also see short long in front or short long behind, then we're talking about below 5. If it's not always clear 4 beat or a little harder, then we're talking below 6. And there are things that are not so complicated, ambling for a few steps after a transition. Let's say you come from a working trot, we have to do a transition at A. And the first 3 strides is a little, you see, it's questionable, the walk. But then it gets very clear, then it's not automatically a 5. You can stay in a 5 or a 6, depending on what happens there. And many times, but I have to say less and less nowadays. Artificially raising the front legs when they go like this with the front legs, and then it has to be a little below 7, but of course there are times that it's like, and a little, so the judge has the option to make a difference depending on how extreme this is. But this gives you an idea of how we have to deduct. And I remember one of the, it was in the 70s, I took my first judging course. I was very young. I think I was like 15 years old when I took my first judging course. And I remember Mr. Pott from Holland that time said, you have to bear in mind that every rider comes down the center line with a 10. From there you deduct. And this is why here, and throughout the presentation, you'll see that we talk about deductions. And that's the way it should be. Okay, we always start all the tests from training level or grade 1 to Grand Prix, from the Olympics, the Paralympics, the Pan American Games, the local show. You always have to start with the horse. And believe me, it doesn't matter if you have a $1,000 horse or a 10 million horse. That's your, I always say, it's kind of like your presentation card. Like, here I am. And it's very easy. It's very complicated. But I have to say, the best whole sightseeing part, more than dressage. And the horse, and I love this figure as well. So the horse has to stay attentive, engaged. So sometimes you see, oh, but the forelegs the horse was perfectly square, but if you see from the side, the hind legs were back here, like the hunting dogs. So that's not good. Horse has to be engaged, motionless. So if the horse starts moving around, then we have to deduct. Has to stay straight. Sometimes it's only the judge at sea that sees that. The judges from the side cannot see that well. So sometimes how is it possible that I got a 5.5 from the judge at C and then a 7 from the judge at B? The judge at C saw that the horse was crooked from the side. It's not that easy. And obviously the weight distributed in 4 legs. The neck, this is very important, raised with the pole as the highest point and a little more in front of the vertical. What do we see? Many times we see the horse looking around, checking the environment, or the horse coming completely behind, avoiding the contact. We'll see later how we deduct. And this is very important. The holds must be shown for at least 3 seconds. So my recommendation is if you can hold, wait a second, salute and go, and you feel that your horse is going to stay there, take your time, show off. If you feel it, that it may move at any time, don't take too much chances. Try to mark it, but go. And maybe the judge will say not enough seconds, should stay more in mobility, but if it didn't move, you cannot penalize it too much. The quality of the paces before and after the halt is an integral part of the assessment. This is important because many times we say, look, 2 halts, especially when you're watching, 2 halts that were exactly the same. Both, let's say, right hind out a little bit. Why does one get a 6.5 and the other one get a 7? And when we're watching, it's like, what are these judges? The halt was this. Well, probably the quality of the canter or the trot or the walk to X and the quality of the trot and the transitions was different in the other one. So it's not only the halt in that first movement that we take into consideration, we also see the straightness at the entrance, the transition, the halt, the transition out, and the straightness out. So it's not only the halt. And many times I've had this happen many years ago in a national show. Look at this picture of my horse. It looked like this. Perfect. And you only gave me a 6. Perfectly square. What else do you want to see from a hold? You're so tough, why don't you give higher marks? What she was not mentioning is that the entrance was crooked, was going like this. The horse was fighting into the hold or out, but the moment of the picture, of course, was a beautiful picture. But we take into consideration the entire entrance. Okay, so deductions in accordance with the regulations. So no immobility or resistance below 5, losing canter for some steps or breaking into canter for some stride instead of trotting out of the halt below 5, resting one leg during the halt below 6, stepping back below 5, stepping slightly back, maximum 6, and then we see depending the quality of paces. And we will talk about it later in walk. We will do the circles, the serpentines, the leg yielding, and the accuracy of all those movements is very important. But I want to continue for now with the trot. So again, we go back to the rhythm. The trot is a 2-beat pace of alternate diagonals. So when does a trot become irregular, will be my question. And then just to make it real clear, is when the horse, instead of trotting like this, is going like in front or behind, and sometimes it's like what's called a solo run. So that happened. Story here was judging in Central America once. Here comes a paso tino. And those horses don't trot by diagonals. They trot laterally. And of course, I couldn't give more than a 4. These horses are bred to trot like that. But that does not conform to the trot that we want in dressage. So none of my marks could go more than a 4. And then the owners come to me and they said, we did it to confuse you. And we wanted to see what you were going to do. And I said, I feel sorry for the horse, because the horse, the only ones that are confused here are you. The horse was bred to do a different thing, and I think it's not fair to him to do it. Now, I think about it, I should have rounded up. I should have eliminated it. Didn't do it. Probably would have been better. And those are some of the cases that you have to understand. That horse was not fit to compete. That horse was not fit to fulfill the criteria of the level. Sometimes we have to make those decisions. But it's very important that it is clear diagonal movement of 2-beat. Always free, active, regular, and we were talking before, how do we judge the quality of the rock? So we're talking about the elasticity, the freedom of the shoulder. Here, we talk about the regularity, of course, the elasticity of the steps, the cadence and impulsion, and everything comes from a rider, a trot that comes out of a supple back, well-engaged hindquarters, and maintaining the same rhythm with a natural balance in all the variations, whether you're doing working trot or from working trot to lengthening of steps. So we don't want to see a good working trot that goes to lengthening that becomes irregular. Then we have to go down with the mark. Or that is good in the lengthening, but when it comes back becomes irregular. So again, I think this correlates with the pyramid of training, regularity at the base. And we have collected trot, working trot, medium trot, lengthening of steps, extended trot, and stretching. So let's talk about working trot, which is very important in para. So it's between collected and medium trot, and it's for a horse that has not been perfectly developed in training for collection, but we want to see a horse that is balanced, that is moving forward, that stays on the bit, that is elastic, and it has good walk action. And that means that we want to see impulsion from the hindquarters. So the horse is moving actively and gives the impression that it's happy. So you should also look a little bit at the hind legs, where the hind legs are touching. If they're not showing, not even reaching the footprint, there may be something wrong there. But it's not the only thing that you have to see. You have to see the activity, the liveness of the trot. For medium, of course, we don't want to see the horses running, hurrying. We want to see that it lengthens the steps, that there is more impulsion at the hindquarters, and you allow the frame a little longer. But very important, steps should be even, and the whole movement must be balanced and unconstrained. Extension is extreme, and here the horse covers as much ground as possible. What is important that the horse is not running and that the hind legs don't go back like that. I don't know if you've seen the chicken running. When they go with the hind legs out like that, the judges will all usually say hind legs out, and the judge cannot be as high. And this is one thing, many times you see like that. Look at that over-tracking. It was over-tracking like this, and the front legs were like that. Front leg goes like that, but the hind leg stays out. Doesn't mean the horse is coming from behind. And then the mark cannot be as high as a horse that is sitting, coming under, and then pushing up. Stretching, I would like to say it's more or less the same comments that we did for the trot. We want to see a horse that is true. If a horse is relaxed, if the horse is working properly, you will be able to show this. If the horse is tense, has been forced on the training with artificial things, when you give, it will go up. If the horse is properly trained and it's relaxed, the moment that you give, you will be able to stretch on the long run. So to me, when you're judging and you see that this is performed easy, the one that does this should be the winner. You know? And I'm all the time thinking like this is usually at the end in the test, but this will tell you how is this horse feeling with his rider. How is the rider been training this horse? It looks easy. It's not easy. It's very complicated, but it shows us suppleness. It shows us obedience. It shows that the horse is fully relaxed. And so it's very important. It's very important that the horse maintains the rhythm, that is light in the shoulders, and that also, as we were talking in the walk, the retake of the reins, both transitions are good. Again, a recommendation, don't drop the reins and let the horse go like that. We want to see the horse go like that. Problems in the trot, as we mentioned, the problems in the walk. Okay. Nowadays we have, in most of the CPDIs, we have computers, so if one judge sees that a horse is lame, then he can push a button and the other judges can see. Sometimes we don't have that device. And then, so let's say the judge at C is a very good guy, or doesn't see it, or does not consider it so bad. This may happen. The other judges have to go below 5 or lower depending on severity. Okay, this is when differences in judges appear. If the horse is not always regular, several uneven steps, break of rhythm, maximum 5. If there is a short stumble or momentary loss of regularity, it's just below 7. And if there is problems due to lack of balance, irregular steps in the other movements into tracks, like shouldering, like half pass, like hunches in, then you also have to go back, down, and deduct 1 or 1.5, but never more than a 6. Extend the trot when it's very tight in the neck and back, and no overtrack, has to be below 7 if the rhythm is good. Canter. So the canter, so walk was a 4-beat, trot was a 2-beat, canter is a 3-beat. That was the way I was taught. Regular strides, and again here we judge the canter by the regularity of the steps, the lightness of the steps, and the horse has to accept the connection. The hindquarters have to stay active. I think this figure here, number 1, is very important. The horse taking weight on the outside leg. The horse has to show a natural balance and should always stay straight. I would say the gait where we see more problems of straightness is in canter. And we have different kinds of canter. Again, collected canter, working canter, medium canter, and extended canter. More or less the same that we talk about the trot. I don't want to go in detail because I'm taking too long for this presentation. But again here, for us, very important, the working canter. The horse shows a natural balance. The horse stays on the beat. Light and active strides, good hop action, and it is very important the impulsion that originates from the activity of the hindquarters. So we want to see a horse that is active, that is jumping, that shows shoulder freedom, and then we also have lengthening of the canter, and then we can go to medium canter, and the biggest one is the extended canter, when the horse covers as much ground as possible, and at the same time the horse has to stay calm, has to stay on the beat and straight. Many times we see people going running. We don't want to see that. We want to see the horse calm, covering ground, and staying straight, and that the horse can come back. Don't go so much that you cannot come back. There is a corner on the other side. You always have to make a transition back. So don't forget that. Problems in the canter, more or less the same as problems in the trot. But I have to say that here there are also differences, because there are some judges that are more critical with rhythm issues than others. So when the canter becomes unclear 3-beat canter, the mark has to be below 5. And there are problems that we will mark in this way. Unintentional break of pace. Let's say you're supposed to do a 20-meter circle in canter, and the horse loses the canter. Unintentional flying change between 2 movements, or shortly changing behind, then you have to deduct 2 points. However, never more than a 6. So this is very important, because you lose the rhythm, so this is something that we cannot accept. There is one movement that is included in many of our tests, And that is a very complicated and difficult. Walk period or turn on the hunches. And I would say that turn on hunches and periods are as in the halt, the movement that can give you a first place or a second or a third, or put you out. So if the horse gets stuck behind for some steps, below 5, 1 step below 6, clearly not in 4-beat throughout below 5. If it loses the 4-beat in the second part below 6, clear outside flexion below 6 minutes. Instead of turn the hunches to the left, horse has to look to the left, bend around the rider's inside leg, but instead the horse is bent the other way. We have to go down. Problems on the simple changes of lead also. Horses changes in canter below 5. If the horse takes the incorrect lead, let's say you come into the cantering left, you have to do walk, then canter right. If it goes again to the left, has to be below 5. Both transitions with trot steps has to be below 5. It's only one transition is below 6. If the walk is not correct, and this we see a lot, then maximum 6. If there is not enough steps, only one step of walk, maximum 5. Too many steps of walk, deduction of 2 points. And this is one of the things that is just a mistake of the rider, not thinking clearly, because you can see when is that the horse is not reacting, and you can see when it's just the rider is so happy in the walk that did not count the strides and just stays there. So don't do that. And if there's only trot steps, no walk is shown, then maximum 4. Okay, so that gives you the overall impression of walk, trot, and canter, and how important for the judges is the training skill. Throughout we talk about the regularity, the suppleness, the contact, etc. So now I want to talk briefly about the arena and how important geometry is. So my recommendation to all of you is that before you go to a horse show, study your test, and you have this sort of designs. Take a look at them, study every movement with the directives that we were talking at the beginning. So let's say you have to start in trot, then you have to do a 20-meter circle. So look exactly where you start. You start at, in this case, for instance, you start at B. Where do I have to go in the center line? How do I get back to E? Where do I have to go in the center line here? How do I have to come back to B? Not before, not after. Make this really round, not like a neck. So geometry is very important. And voltes and circles. We were talking about straightness before, so here we see a very straight horse, but of course you see that the bend from pole to tail changes in the circle depending on the size of the circle. So in the 20-meter, it's not too much, but in an 8-meter volte, it's more. If the hunches, instead of staying here, swing out, we have to go down. Or if the hunches, instead of staying here, come to the inside, we have to go down. If the shoulders come in or go out, or if it is the neck that is overflexed to the inside, or stays to the outside. So think of this bending throughout. In order to have a horse that is straight, he has to be supple to the right, and he has to be supple to the left as well. Serpentines. you have to show this serpentine that you can make the horse straight here and then bend to the other side, and straight here and then bend to the other side. Here we have another different kind of serpentine. So make sure that you studied your diagrams, you know exactly where do you start, where do you go. You go to the center line, reach the center line. If it's on to the quarter line, go to the quarter line. Or if it's from center line to quarter lines and back to the center line, study them. Accuracy helps a lot. Figure 8, same thing. I think this diagram is beautiful because you see they were straight, bending, straight, bending left. Legume. This is a diagram from the FEI rulebook. So look, it's a very small, tiny flexion of the toe. The horse has to stay parallel to the track. Of course, the judge from the front will see the crossing, but we don't want to see the neck completely here or the punches here. The horse, like in the diagonal, has to be parallel to the tracks, remaining on the beat, on the outside rein. And here we have the diagrams for half pass, bending in the direction in which the horse is going. I'm shouldering. This diagram is very important. It's only 3 tracks, so usually we see this angle, this way. We don't need that angle. It's only 30 degrees, and if you're standing in front or behind, you should be able to see the outside front in the same line as the inside hind leg. So these are more or less the movements that you will find in the para dressage test. So I encourage you all to go and participate in the national classes, and of course, if you have achieved a higher level, go to CPDIs. Of course, expectations of judges are different. We know that if we go to a national show, it will be a beginner or a person that is trying to get there, or a person that needs a break from the international arena to gain confidence again. Of course, the expectations from the judges are different. If somebody asks me if we judge the same or we judge different, my personal opinion is that the scale to be used should be the same. We don't make riders competing in a national class any favor by overscoring them. If we overscore the riders in the national level, let's say we give them a 74, they'll have the right to think, oh, I'm getting 74. Let's see what are the scores of the persons that are making the US Paralympic team. Oh, it's in that range. So I should go, right? But then they go to a CPDI and they get 64 or less. So I don't think it's good. I think we should say, we should give exactly the marks that you would get. Some trainers would say like, oh, but you're too tough, they're just beginning. No, I think we have to give an assessment of where the training is so that the training can improve. And I have a personal story. I was not yet a para dressage. This was like before trial. I was judging a national dressage show in Canada. And I judged a lady, and to be honest, I didn't even realize that she was apart rider. I gave my marks. Then I realized that I had given that this was a para dressage test, and I talked to her. Okay, at the end of the test, what comments would you give? So I gave her comments, just read the test, and next day she was showing with a different judge, and she got even a higher score. My score was good, I have to say. But then she got an even better score. So she came to me and said, like, I have a question for you. With the scores I got, I could go to a CPDI with their planning and trying, and if I get the right scores, I could make the Canadian team. Do you think I should try? And my question was, my answer was, is the horse healthy? I said yes. Are you healthy? Can you do the travel? Yes. Do you have the resources to do it? She said yes. Then it's like, what are you waiting for? Make your reservations. Go and try it. If you don't make it, doesn't matter. She did, and she's been on the team on several occasions. And every time I see her, she says, like, I'll never forget that you were the one that pushed me. Honestly, I was not thinking that I could do it. So if you're doing well nationally, and if your trainer tells you that you can do it, try it. It's a wonderful experience, and there are a lot of possibilities out there. Then, how to use the judge's comment to improve scores on future rides. Read carefully what we read. Many times, especially on 2-day shows, sometimes you see, oh, this rider read that I wrote. It's like, don't run, or pull too high, or too restricted, or too much flexion to the right, or horse always flex to the right. And if the next day, many times I can assure you, I see like, this rider read, and the improvement is amazing. And sometimes you go like, I'm sure he doesn't even read. But, and I know, and I was a rider myself, right? So I know that sometimes we don't even want to look at those tests because the judges have been terrible with us. And sometimes there are judges that we trust, and there are some other judges that we don't trust, let's be honest, right? But I have to say, all of them will try to give you an honest and personal opinion of how they think you can improve. Of course, look at it, sit down with your trainer, look at the video, like, more square behind or rounder at the hold, then it's not an 8, it's only a 6 or a 6.5. Yes, we have to improve here. The leg yielding not parallel enough, or the walk more marching. I mean, look at your video. Videos, I think, are really good. And if you have in CPDIs different judges in different positions, then you can also see why the difference. As I was mentioning before, probably, in the stretching, the judge from C can see the overtracking, and the other one from the side cannot see anything because the horse is coming towards him. So you will understand how the different perspectives are. Sometimes it's like, I'm sitting there, and the horse is putting the tongue out, right? But only to me. I know the other judges are not seeing it, and I'm like, I have to give a 4. The tongue is out like that, and I'm sure I'll be the only one with a 4. The other ones will be 7 or more, but that's my job, Maybe in the other movement, when it goes the other way around, he'll be the judge of E that will be watching that, and he'll take care of that. I cannot give a bad mark if I don't see it. But it's important to sit with your trainer, with the videos, and look at the comments, movement by movement, and especially the comment at the end. And finally, some ways to make a good impression on the judge. Overall presentation of the horse, that's very important. Good clean attire and equipment, nice halt at the entrance, and good geometry. If you ride your corners, if you ride your circles, if you go from point to point. And finally, even, let's say you make a big mistake, the horse trotted in the middle of the walk, forget about it. It's not the end of the world, it's one mark. Focus on the coming movement. So we didn't have more time. I thought it was not too long of a presentation. I know there are many topics to discuss. I hope you enjoy this presentation and that it helps you in your future career as part of dressage.